Uh, of- the focus is going to be, of course, at the end of the day, can we know some basic steps that we need to take to hopefully prevent dementia? And those of us who know family members or loved ones having early dementia, to slow it down. And for those who are pretty bad with dementia, is there anything we can do to achieve some kind of a reversal, if at all? Okay. Now, before talking about dementia, I need to tell you about the different systems of the body, especially the nervous system. The nervous system, as you know, consists of the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. And I have a diagram here which will give you an idea of how close, and if you look at this very carefully, number three is the one that depicts the nervous system. This is the brain, and then the spinal cord comes down along the spinal column, and from there, different nerves go out, both to the upper limbs and to the lower limbs, and also to the trunk. I've put two other diagrams together. One is the circulatory system, the heart here, and the red color is the arteries, the blue are the veins. I just put it by the side to let you know that both of them track each other very closely. Blood vessels and the nerves supply all parts of the body and the organs, and they lie pretty close to each other. This is just to show you all the other organ systems. And now, the body is pretty a crowded place where all this has to be jam packed. Okay. Now, if we need to catch the most important part of the nervous system, which is the brain, this is roughly how it looks. With the person where the face is recognizable, the orientation of the brain is like this. So there is one part here called the cerebrum. This is the largest part. And then there's a second part that is just below that. We call that cerebellum. You don't have to remember these technical names. Now, all the nerves from the brain come down and present themselves as a cord. The first part is called the brain stem, and as it continues down, it becomes the spinal cord that runs in the spinal column, which consists of 33 bones. We'll tackle that maybe another day. So the brain, all of the brain, is in fact located in a hard shell that we call skull. The skull doesn't expand, so the brain is very well protected. The skull is hard because the brain is extremely soft. Okay. Now, if you take a slice of the brain uh, along this direction, and if you cut off half of it, this is what you see. You will see a surface layer which is very large, which is what we call the white matter, and the gray matter seems to be inside, and we have different sections of the gray matter. Now, the difference is this. The gray matter is the collection of the nerve cells. White matter is a collection of the nerve itself, the nerve extension that goes into the spinal cord. Now, as you can see from the different colors, we have different collections of nerves. Each of them are called nuclei, and they have different functions. Now, here is a little dark here. This is how the whole thing looks in what is called a magnetic resonance imagine, uh, imaging, MRI. Okay. I'm not sure whether you see this clearly, but the brain is mainly here, and then it comes down, and this very whitish parts are actually the vertebrae. Here, these are the vertebrae that belongs to the neck region. We call it cervical. So what I want to get across here is roughly how the brain is laid out in relation to your face, neck, and the head. If you notice that most of them is actually above the eye. By the way, the eye has a nerve supply from the brain, and the back portion of the eye is actually part of the brain. During our development, it comes to join the front portion of the eye to become the eye. So it's very closely related to the brain. Now, um, many people have tried to map the brain to try and tell us exactly which area does what. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as it sounds. But then we have got to start with something that's basic. So if I have to really put a label on an area of the brain for the various functions, this is roughly how it looks like. Now, this is the major part of the brain, which is the cerebrum, and this the cerebellum, and here is the brainstem, which will proceed as the spinal cord. Now, if you look at this memory processing, it's not just this one area. For example, you are reading something and you need to understand. Number one is you need attention. You need to not planning, but actually make a process, a protocol in that attention so that you begin to understand the subject that you're reading. And while you're reading, as you flip the pages, you need to have a memory of what you have read before. Now, all this works together to give you an idea of the picture that you're forming. That picture will be aided by your hearing. You're not hearing anything, but you're reading something. And in that situation, it will throw back your mind to a similar situation or something related to that. You will identify certain sounds with that. It may be involving some touch. It may involve, let's say you're reading about food, it may stimulate or make you remember the taste or how the whole thing looked. Now, as you can see, even for a simple function, different parts of the brain have to interact with each other, and it is extremely complex. We haven't really sorted it out or teased it out. Every 10 years, we think that we understand quite a bit, and then there is a breakthrough and say, whoa, there's a lot more to understand. Now, I'm sure most of you have read a little bit about the brain, but here's some interesting data. Now, some years ago, it was estimated that the brain was made up of 100 billion cells. Our measurements are not measurements, more like estimations are a little bit more accurate. Today, the number seems to be around 86 billion. By the way, the body is about 100 trillion cells. Now, this brain is made up of only two types of cells. In between the cells, we have what is called a lot of ground substance. You can call it packing material, but it's not that simple. This packing material itself is, in a way, alive and has many functions. So the ground substance for creates a lot of this. Now, we are born with a certain number of brain cells. So far, we believe brain cells cannot multiply. If you lose brain cells, you are going to lose it for good. So try to avoid activities where you lose brain cells. Too much of alcohol or drugs can help to lose brain cells. At the time of birth, the baby may be 6 or 7 pounds and they have a 1 pound brain. Now, that's quite a big ratio for a child or a baby or an infant that's 6 or 7 pounds. 1/6 of the weight is the brain, the head. In fact, it's so heavy the baby can't lift the head. So it takes a couple of weeks before they can actually hold the head. As we get older, the brain increases in size, but not as proportionally to the body. So we come to roughly about a 3 pound organ, the brain, and someone who's smaller or ladies who are small size, it can vary anything from 2.7 to about 3 pounds. All of it is located in the head, the skull, and the consistency is softer than soft jelly. Most of us, when we see brain preserved in a bottle or something, it's already preserved. And if you touch it, it is soft, but it is formed. But in the live body, if you open a part of the skull and look at the brain, you can actually see the brain pulsating. Yes, it pulsates with the heartbeat because a lot of blood vessels get into the brain. So when the heart pumps, these blood vessels and expand and collapse. And you can see the brain expanding and collapsing. Now, if you go for a day of heavy drinking, the next morning you may get headache, severe headache. You know what is the best way to cure the headache? If you can get to the source of some oxygen supply, just breathe in some pure oxygen for about a minute or two, and your headaches will come down dramatically. The headaches are caused by swelling of the brain. And the best way to reduce the size or the swelling is to inhale oxygen just for a couple of minutes, maybe 2 to 3 minutes if you need it. Not more than that. Too much oxygen is bad. Now, you put such a soft organ into a hard container like the skull, it's going to fracture. If you fall down and knock your head, it'll fracture. So we have another system in the skull to make sure that the brain is cushioned. Now, there is fluid on the surface of the brain and in the middle of the brain. There is a space in the middle of the brain. The fluid system outside is connected to the inside. So even if you have a quick shaking of the head, you get cushioned by this liquid tower. Okay? So much for that. Now, if you do come across any further information, you can relate to this and build on it. Now, what are the functions of the brain? Now, if you look at a medical textbook or any other technical book, the list is much longer than that. I have kept it to the minimum. The number one thing is memory. On this depends everything that we do in life. How do we grow up? We learn our language, our mother tongue, listening to our parents and people around us speaking, and we keep it in our memory so that we can recall. You learn things in school. It takes about 10 to 12 years to finish. How do you progress? Because you remember. So memory is very important, and there are two parts to it. One, you retain it, and you must be able to recall it. Otherwise, the memory is of no use. Now, as we get older, retention is not a problem, but recall is. And I'm sure many of us have what we call senior moments where you are looking for a word and saying, I know that word, it will come. The recall takes a little longer than it takes, than it takes when you're younger, you see. So sometimes as you get older, you have to talk a little slowly, think ahead so that you get your words right. Unfortunately, when you do that, you get sidelined because you're an old man, very slow in your talk. And that is the age at which you need more stimulation and you get sidelined, even by your family members. Now, another function of the brain is to be able to make us aware of the environment that we are living in. Is the place conducive to living? Smell is extremely important. Bad food smells bad. Bad environment smells bad. We quickly get alerted to our environment through smell. You don't have to go all the way to taste everything. Okay. When it comes to food, sometimes the smell may not be there. The taste is important. Okay. Both for enjoying and as a warning to know that this is bad stuff. Hearing. Can you imagine if you don't hear, if you can't hear, forget about not hearing. Even if you don't hear well, you are quite handicapped. Okay. So hearing aids are there. They don't function all that well. Everyone who has a hearing aid um, curses the hearing aid because it's either too loud or too soft. Okay. So hearing is important. 80% of the information that we get is by sight. Not that if you lose your eyes, you will lose 80% of your input. Other sensations will step up, but they can't really make up for the fact that you can see. So your eyes are important and seeing is important. Touch, extremely important. Okay. This is how you know something is hot, cold, sharp, blunt, rough, so on and so forth. Do you know that patients who have leprosy, and you see it only in the third world, those who have worn down um, digits of fingers, noses collapsed. Now, how do they get a loss of those fingers? They don't just wear off, they lose sensation of touch. So when the hand hits something hard, they don't feel the pain. They damage the fingers, the ulcers or the damage doesn't get heal. They repeatedly get damaged again and again, and they lose the digits. So touch is extremely important. Senses that are mediated by the brain. Okay. Complex thoughts. Now, we talked about it in memory. Now, this requires a lot of memory of the things that you learn. Now, another function of the brain is the motor function. We move with about 620 over muscles in our body, about 130 bones and joints. Okay. All this is connected to the nervous system, and our movement depends on the brain. Yes, the nerves to the spinal cord, but they ultimately go to the brain for activation and balance. I showed you a smaller organ just below the brain called the cerebellum that is dominating with regards to management of balance. Now, what do you mean by orientation? The brain can tell you exactly what position you are. You could close your eyes so that you don't see your surroundings. You can hang your head in any direction or sit down on a chair which can be rotated upside down. You will know what position you are. That is a function ultimately of the brain. Sensations come from the body. The brain um, calculates it, interprets that input, and tells you in what position you are. There are a number of things in the body where things happen automatically. If somebody brings their hand to your eyes, you immediately blink. That is automatic. That is called a reflex. And the body has a large number of such reflexes. Okay. So that is also controlled, or rather functions at the lower level of the spine, but it is ultimately controlled by the brain. And of course, the brain has a lot of nerve supply to every organ in the body. So it does control the organ. Now, I put speech here because we need to understand one aspect of speech. Speech has got two parts of it. You understand. By the way, the speech is represented on the left side of the brain. So someone has a stroke involving the left side, it may affect the speech center and they won't be able to speak. Now they can recover over time. Now, speech has got two parts. One is understanding what somebody is telling you. And the second part is you reply, you actually speak. Now, it is possible, and it does happen, where the stroke or the damage to the brain can be to just one part. So the patient understands what you're talking, but is unable to respond. And this is where sign language come in. I just put it here just to let you know there are two parts to speech. What is dementia? A lot of technical definitions in the text. It's brain failure. The brain is beginning to fail. Now, can you draw a line when it is beginning to fail? We don't. There are people who are born with a lower IQ than average, and they talk as if they have some brain failure. Now, they don't have a brain failure, but they have a lower IQ. So, where do you draw the line? Now, I would say draw the line if there is record of the person's capability, and then suddenly we see there is a change in their performance. Now, this can come about under very many circumstances, um, like diseases. Alzheimer's is another complex of diseases. We don't know exactly what it is. We know what happens. Some of the brain cells begin to degenerate, but we don't know why. We point to aluminium, we point to this and that, but we don't know exactly. Now, the second one is stroke. Now, when somebody gets a stroke, is paralyzed on one side, one half, and recovers. And some people recover almost 100%. Okay. And yet, after that, you find that that person is a little slow in his speech, in his understanding, in his response to in any conversation. So even after stroke, what seems to be a full recovery, you may start having dementia, early dementia. Of course, if there is a growth happening in your skull, there is not much of a space to expand. So this tumor is going to, as it grows, compress the normal part of the brain, and behavior and performance can come down. Again, brain failure. That may not be called dementia, but it is brain failure. Now, here is a huge topic, developmental disorder. Now, you are not born with this because you inherited from your uh, generational people, but it could be something that happened during pregnancy. There's some disorder in the development. It could be at different levels, just at the biochemistry of the cell. Now, that will manifest much later in life. We call them mental illness and so on. Mental illness, there is a lot of chemical, you can say, inefficiency. And most of the treatment in psychiatry is focused on that. So, in my personal belief, I think it is a developmental disorder where the production of certain enzymes seem to break down at a particular age. Okay. There are children now who are a little naughty. They move around, they jump around, and many of them, unfortunately, are labeled ADHD. Now, this is not to say there is no ADHD, but unfortunately, in modern times, children who need a cane are also labeled ADHD. Okay. Now, how do you prevent this? Sorry. Uh, First thing is, could be the causes. Now, the causes seem to be very normal and the regular thing. When you talk about malnutrition, yes, at the same time, it's not 100% true. You go to a poor country that is going through, you don't see this now, uh, not enough food. In fact, you can have a famine. And I think the last famine was something like 30 years ago in Ethiopia. Countries like that, you find most people seem to be mentally normal. not much of dementia. So, nutrition seems to be a little bit more nuanced. If there is enough calories, you seem to escape it. You don't have to get all the nutrient that you require. But of course, in today's world, you are expected to function at a much higher level. So just getting by normal is not enough. Nutrition does play a part. Now, they also find that those who sleep late every night, in that group, there is a larger number or incidence of dementia. Now, does that mean those who sleep late will get dementia? No. If you look at some of the great leaders of the past, both in the political field or the research field, they slept very little and they seemed to be okay. They were performing at a high level. But for the bulk of the population, adequate sleep seems to be a necessity. Okay? They also find that those who are involved in physical activity, whether organized or due to the fact that you have to earn a living, um, the incidence is much less. The incidence begins to rise when they stop that work. Okay? Weight control, again controversial. We are told that, heavy being overweight is bad and so on. But when it comes to dementia, doesn't seem to affect it that much. It is people who seem to be very thin who seem to be getting more dementia. One area that we are quite sure is if your sugar is out of control over a long period of time. In fact, as you know, diabetes today is classified into two types, type 1, type 2. Now, many people are talking about type 3, which is actually dementia due to excessive sugar in the blood or uncontrolled sugar in the blood over a long time. And when you study these cases, you find that even those who have good control of sugar tend to go towards dementia, some of them. Okay. Smoking, quite clearly related because it causes constriction of blood vessel, lower oxygen supply, increased carbon monoxide supply, and many of the chemicals that go with the smoke can affect the different parts of the body differently. And in some people, it seems to hit their head. Uh, for example, about different parts of the body. In women, particularly, smoking seems to hit their skin more hard than all other organs. They tend to get wrinkles faster. So, smoking seems to be very selective in the way it damages you. Drug usage, oh, this is a very clear area, okay? Illegal drugs, for sure. You use it long enough, maybe a couple of years, you're never going to come back to normal again. Okay. Legal drugs, drugs that are used for treatment can cause dementia. What are these drugs? Usually drugs used for sleeping, for sedation, to reduce very painful conditions. If overused constantly, yes, it can cause that. So, next question would be how do we prevent dementia? Do just the opposite. Get the appropriate nutrition. Make sure your lifestyle is the best that you can provide yourself. Keep alcohol consumption as low as you can. Alcohol is a double-edged sword. One or two shots seem to improve health. More than that, it damages you. Now, if you look at it, even food is like that. Food is necessary for life. Too much food is also bad for life. Okay. Smoking is probably the only one that has no redeeming factor, no matter how little you smoke. Now, by the way, smokers, when my patients come, I'm a little bit more comfortable with the guy who smokes 20 sticks a day than the one who smokes six or seven. There is a difference. People who smoke that many cigarettes are usually puffers. They're not smokers. Those who smoke less than 10, they really enjoy their cigarette. They inhale it to the maximum, extract the full nicotine, and enjoy that drag, they call it, and that causes more damage. Okay. Now, is there any special procedure that we need to do to help us prevent dementia? Now, probably you're tired of hearing this fresh vegetables and fruits, but amazingly, they do an amazing job of preventing many things, not only dementia. Why? Now we know that they contain a lot of substances which we formerly did not know. And antioxidants, minerals aren't the only ones. There are plant chemicals. That's how we know. I mean, that's how little we know about it. Phytochemicals. What are they? We are not very sure, but we know they are there. And you get that only from eating fresh vegetables and, of course, fruits. Now, they also find that populations that used to do jigsaw puzzle, crossword puzzles survive without dementia much longer. Now, in the past generation, it was quite popular in Britain to have a crossword puzzle in your newspaper, every newspaper that is published every day. And apparently, while traveling in the train, most of them are sitting down and answering those crossword puzzles. It requires a lot of thought, not just numbers. It's placing the words, you have to call on your vocabulary, and so on and so forth. Now, they found that that particular generation actually enjoyed much better mental health. Now, another area where you continuously stimulate your brain is calculation. So, those who are involved in the financial field are usually involved in this. The brain receives 20 to 25% of the blood supply. That's how much oxygen is needed. And the brain runs on glucose. Okay. If you notice that during examination time, your children who are in their teens, they eat more. Why? The amount of calories spent shoots up 20 to 25% increase in the calories when you are mentally fully occupied. Now, I've always wondered maybe that should be adopted as a weight loss uh, activity. You want to lose weight? Join a course in the evening where you learn an extra subject and you have to think a lot and study. That may help you to lose weight. Anyway, now to keep the brain active, book. Now it has been they've studied the way books are printed, the pages, the size of it, and over the years they have come to a level where books are. Have you noticed? They are pretty much the same size. The variation is very little. They find that seems to be the right size to put minimum work on the eyes, and you can read in at a speed. You can only read at a particular speed. That speed seems to be appropriate to stimulate your thinking, to critically look at what you are reading and think about it. You can't do the same thing if you're reading from a screen. So when you look for some information in Google, YouTube, you have a lot of explanations. But if you find, you think back about it, not much is remembered. You remember the main points. But if you read a book, you are forced to slow down. You can't read it very fast. There is they say pick up a book and relax, they say. Why? Because it slows you down. And because of that, you think about what you're reading. And if you think you didn't get the last page correctly, because something else is being said in this page, you can quickly flip back without much effort. So the connections are better made and you come off doing a lot of work for your brain, which seems to help in reducing the occurrence of dementia. A very good life example would be the ex Prime Minister of Malaysia, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. He's 99. and he gives press conferences today. And they asked him, how are you able to be so active now? He gave a few reasons. One of it was that he said, you have to choose your parents carefully. Uh, that was a nice one. But one thing he said, I read one book every week. He says, you must read a book so that the ideas presented can be challenged. You can have an internal debate going on, which keeps your mind active. Okay. Those who want to really get it down, you should write essays. People who write stay sane much longer. One of my favorite authors passed away. The last book he wrote was at the age of 99 and published it at the age of 100. I don't know of anyone who did that later than that, but that is the oldest that I know of. Okay. Now, watching TV and social media is very passive. The people who are presenting are doing the thinking for you, whether you're watching a political speech or anything else. They have done the thinking and they just putting it out and you are absorbing it. Now, when it comes to movie, yeah, for fun once in a while. But if it is regular thing, there's nothing more you learn. And many of these movies today, I think you already know the plot about a quarter of the way, how it's going to finish. Anyway, so what can we do about this any more than this? Now, someone who doesn't have dementia is the one who should be doing all this. Someone who is in early dementia, please get a medical opinion. As I mentioned earlier, there are many other medical causes that can be controlled or treated. Okay. So make sure you don't suffer from that and catch it at a very late stage. See a medical doctor. There's a lot of complaint about medical doctors and specialists. And let me remind you, these are people who spend a lot of time in their training. They know a lot, but they may not think along your lines. So take them for the information you can get. You are the one who needs to decide what you would like to follow. But they are a good source of areas which sometimes need to be cleared before you can progress in what you want to do. Okay. Um, Here, as someone who's speaking for a company that is marketing nutritional products, I want to focus on the nutritional requirement. Now, for your brain to be preserved, it requires certain basic nutrition. Now, just like any part of the body, it requires all the basic nutrition, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and so on. But there are some nutritional substances that the brain specifically requires in its support to prevent it from failure or degeneration, as we say in the field. Now, to support the structure of brain cells, you need omega 3 oils as the number one requirement. Now, omega 3 oils, if you look at the nutritional substances or preparations that are sold worldwide, they number about almost 1,000 because of permutation combinations of different vitamins and so on. But the top 3 to 5 will always include omega 3. Omega 3 is one of the polyunsaturated fatty acids. Okay. Polyunsaturated fatty acid. Taking omega 3, and there have been a lot of survey done over the last maybe 30 years, and they found is of absolutely, well, not absolutely, usually of no use. It doesn't produce any benefit. I said, hey, how come? When we look at people who consume a lot of fatty fish with a lot of omega 3 in the fatty fish, they seem to be doing well. They have lower cardiovascular disease, lower dementia rates, and so on. But when you prepare it and allow people to consume, it doesn't give you that benefit. Now they find that all polyunsaturated fatty acids always come with an antioxidant, especially omega 3. It's called fluorotenin, not polyphenols, fluorotenin. Now, the requirement for oily products to be marketed, this requirement is from every government. You have to purify it and show that you don't have chemicals or heavy toxic metals. Now, in that purification process, we lose that fluorotenin. Companies realized this about 15, 20 years ago, and you can't make fluorotenin uh, above the earth. It is it is synthesized by algae in deep sea. Okay, so what is the closest to it? They have used vitamin E, um, zeaxanthin, all kinds of antioxidants that we know. But somehow it didn't really work till they decided to use this. Polyphenols extracted from olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. When they add this, oh, now we have complex tests to find out when you take omega 3, is it working for you? Is it getting integrated into the tissue, the lining of the brain cells, the lining of the red blood cells? Is it working for you? And I've been involved with this test because the company provides such a test that can be done. And I was quite surprised. Even those who are taking other omega 3s do not have the required results to show that, yes, they were better than people who did not take omega 3 at all. But compared to where they should be, they were still much lower. So you need to take omega 3, which contains this polyphenols. And of course, vitamin D3 is a bonus. Vitamin D3 is extremely important. It is only after COVID we realized that our requirement, as was recommended, 400 to 800 international units is just not enough. We have to be taking much more than that. Um, okay, so this is one of the main requirements. Then we also realize that we need antioxidants. Now, when we when life goes on, a lot of reactions are taking place in the body, and there is a continuous production of oxidants. Uh, now, this has to be neutralized. Okay, the normal term used is free radical activity. Okay, the body has to produce substances to help reduce free radical activity. If free radical activity is harmful, why is the body producing it? In fact, free radical activity is healthy. Free radical activity is necessary to destroy microbes that come into the body, dead cells which are not being decomposed fast enough, chemicals that come into the body from the environment, food, and the water that we drink. We need free radical activity to break that down. Now, the free radical activity is not very finely controlled. Today, we are exposed to more stuff from outside, so the body has to produce more. And sometimes, not sometimes, most of the times, it goes above the limit. Now, the body has a way to control this excess free radical activity. The body cells itself produce antioxidants. One very powerful one is SOD. Unfortunately, as we get older, that production begins to come down because we are getting old. And the environmental input of substances for which the body has to produce free radicals doesn't come down. So it'll be good if we can supplement that in our diet. Okay. Now, we focus a lot about minerals And that is extremely important. Our calcium, our sodium, our potassium is extremely important for the environment in the body in which the brain can function well. What we forget is we have something like 60 over minerals, which we require in extremely small numbers. So micro minerals is not the size of the mineral. Micro here is to tell you that it is required in extremely small amounts. Now, we don't get enough of that in modern day food. Okay. That's another replacement that we would need. And gut attention, attention to our bowels, not very strong. Even now, you go to the hospital, don't worry about your gut. I mean, you can't open your bowels. We'll give you something to pass out. If you, not a problem at all. But when you study the nervous system, I mentioned that nerves are supplied to all the organs in the body. Normally, we've been thinking that there are sensations going from the brain to the organs, particularly to the digestive system. Okay, most of the signals are to the organs to control how they function. Today, with electrophysiological studies, we find, shockingly, 80 to 90% of the signals are from the bowels back to the brain. And further studies show how these signals will allow the brain to send further signals in a way where chemicals are produced to protect our digestive system, which is the only system that has got two openings to the outside, one the mouth and the other one the other side. And a lot of stuff goes in. And so our immune system, which is 70% of which is lined up in the wall of the gut, is to prevent this. And this very fine balance of what goes on in the gut is controlled by the gut gets the right amount of food for its friendly bacteria. Okay. And I've also mentioned the product that provides all this. Of course, the first one is balance oil. Second one is Velixir. Unfortunately, this is only available in Southeast Asia. Xenobiotic, which is a combination of about seven different fibers. You don't get that in any single food. You have to eat quite a variety of food, which I would urge you to do because you get much more than fiber. But if you take xenobiotic, at least you are assured that all those fibers are available. I just put up a picture here of the products available. Let me say a few words before I finish on the test. Now, this test is through a finger prick. Nowadays, we are able to test the red blood cell for the content of almost anything. But that hasn't come into general practice simply because of the cost, commercial factor. Okay. But like omega 3 and so on, it is still affordable. And these tests have come into the market. And of course, Zinzino markets this test. We don't do the test. We get a lab to do it, which is an independent lab. And from what they have tested, they have done over a period of time about 1.5 million tests, in excess of 1.5 million. Now they find that 97% of the people do not measure up to enough of omega 3 in their system. Okay. So this is a good test to do to know where you stand, whether you are taking a supplement or not. If you're taking a supplement and you get the right ratios, well, you're doing the right thing and you can carry on. Now, if not, you may want to look at the balance oil to see you would like to try that. And that will be a good thing because after the test, you take it for about 120 days. Why this particular time? Because it takes that much time to change all the red blood cells in the system. Of course, in Malaysia, people do not have that They're not that patient. They do it earlier. So they do it in 2 months. They don't arrive at their ideal ratios, but because of the change they see, they get the confidence that, yeah, I'm moving in the right direction. Okay. So with that, I will stop here. I've been talking for quite a while, and maybe I can take some questions that you have about what I said or anything else. You can type the questions in the chat area. Um, okay, I'll stop sharing. We have one question. Can balance oil help in improving the health or movement of a 30-year-old lady who was born, I guess, with low IQ or brain defect? They're not sure. Now, how to go about this would be first to check with the doctor, because they have to do a couple of tests to see what is the mental status of the 30-year-old person. She's at by 30 years, you're already done with your brain development. So they can find out whether genuinely she has a low IQ. And if she has it, is it because of a brain deformity or because it is a functional thing? Okay. Now, usually people with a low IQ or there's some brain problem, they have other poor personal habits that decrease their normal health. Personal hygiene, bowel movement, dental problems, all that needs to be corrected if you want to upgrade the status of health of that person. Okay. And yes, with all that and balance oil, you will notice an improvement. Can they come back to normal? Unlikely, but there will be a major improvement. There is a question, I think, in Mandarin. Um, Getting forgetful is a symptom of dementia. Yes, early dementia. Forgetfulness is normal. But if it happens too often, then you need to pay attention. Okay. Uh, Forgetfulness could be due to many other reasons. Okay. One is stress. When you're under stress, you've got to do about seven things. You may forget one or two. Okay. So there are many other reasons. Look into that also. But if you're getting a little forgetful in the absence of any other reason, you may want to think about dementia. Yes. How do you compare Zinzino products to the rest? That is, what is the distinct differentiator? Okay. Um, Today we have technology where nutritional products, honestly done, can be pretty much close in their quantity, quality, and presentation. Now, not all companies do it that way because many want to have a larger profit margin. Now, I noticed that Zinzino, because they focus on blood tests, they have to put out products that work. Now, in this part of the world, only balanced oil test, or what we call the dry blood spot test, is available. In other parts of the world, especially in Europe and North America, they have blood tests for other things. And being in the scientific committee, I know they are working on much more complex tests so that every product that you take, you can actually test to see whether your body tissues have improved because you're taking those products. Now, that is where Zincino has the edge over other companies. We have a very short range of products which covers all your basic needs. Um, so you can take it with confidence. The brain is very important for the human body. Recently, some people have suffered brain damage due to vaccination. Is it possible to improve and recover with balanced oil? No. Now, you need to find out what the damage is due to. Um, Vaccination, there is a real chance. Not everybody gets it. And we are at a stage where I think more people are blaming it on vaccination than the actual number. Um, so you need to affirm that before you decide, okay, now, so what about balance oil? So I don't take it? No. Now, if you have any damage, whatever the reason, vaccination, some infection, or whatever, there may be further damage in the books. So you start taking balance oil, you might be able to slow it down or hopefully stop it. For a pregnant lady, how much of balance oil should she take for her last 3 months before birth? How much a newborn baby should take? Okay. Now it's significant that she has asked the last 3 months of pregnancy. That is the time the requirement for omega 3 shoots up. The graph goes up very drastically. In fact, right from the beginning, an expectant mother should be taking balance oil because it can influence the development of the infant child, or rather the baby, the fetus. Okay. So, yes, she should be. How much should she be taking? I would say about 3/4 of a tablespoon. Okay. If you read our bottle, it'll say 12 ml. It works out to about 3/4 of a tablespoon. Newborn baby, you can't give oil. That's why the mother should take it so that in the breast milk, the baby gets it. Now, not all mothers breastfeed. So, how do we do that? Now, there are infant formulas today in the market where omega 3 has been added. Not just last year. This been going on for the last 10 years because they know for a fact omega 3 is extremely important for newborn infants. As there are really many products in the market besides the test mentioned, what is the age that Zinzino has? The quality of the products. Okay. Quality of the products has to be such that it can be reflected in the test. So, yes, quality is up there. Is it the highest quality in the world? I mentioned earlier, technology is available today that many companies can have very high quality products. But one thing I can say about Zinzino, they are second to none in the products they market. Okay.
All right. Thank you, doctor, for your sharing. Today we have a lot of questions, which is really, really good. Okay, meaning to say a lot of them, a lot of the participants have great interest in this topic. Okay, perhaps in the future we can do more of this topic as well. All right. Okay.
That's
Right
right.
now, because we are going to have another meeting, so I'm going to end this call. Okay, but before I end this call, I just show everyone the campaign that we have now. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, doctor, for your sharing. Okay. Right now we
You're
have
welcome.
Black Week. Okay, which is available to all customers. All right. So make sure you got your hands on this Black Week because this Black Week, buy one get more, is going to end on the 30th of November. So you are left with 4 more days to get this campaign. Okay, so what is this campaign all about? All right, so of course you have this premium customer with subscription, all right, plan. So let's say for example your starter kit is you have this starter kit, okay, in Singapore, Malaysia, in the rest of the world, okay, you will have this Black Week campaign, okay, except for Taiwan and India. I'm sorry because we have run out of the products. Okay, so for Singapore, Malaysia, you actually have this additional 2 bottles of big oil and small oil and one test. All right, and also you can, if let's say you are on prepaid, you will also be getting additional bottles as well. All right, and tests as well. All right, so but you must make sure that you you must make sure that you get this product from this uh, Black Week portion. Okay, the link that you send to your customers, it must be on the Black Week offer. Then they will be entitled to the free products. All right. Okay, that's all that I'm going to share today. We are let down with the last 4 days of the month. Okay, I'm pretty sure everyone is so excited about sharing the products. Okay, and the next session for Dr. Abraham will be on the will be on, I think, let me see, will be on the 10th of December, and he's going to share with us about how to improve our immune system, which is very important. Now, we want to be healthy and want to improve our immune system. How to do that? So let us hear from Dr. Abraham on the 12th of December. All right. Okay. That's all for tonight. Thank you very much for your participation. And I wish everyone a great week and month and ahead. Okay. Bye for now. Thank you. Good night. Bye.